Yo, welcome back to another episode of Mailbag Monday by the Money Matters podcast. I'm your host, Jack, and I've got my dad, Bill, my best friend, Dylan, and my stepmother today, Brooke, aka the Bitcoin mom, aka Brookie Cookie, aka Cookie. I'm trying to think of the other child, the nicknames growing up. But we got a full staff plus one.
Andy.
How you guys doing, Sandy? Yep. How you guys doing?
That's a new one.
Well, she's a Cali girl now. She was a brunette when I married her.
Thanks for inviting me.
You are welcome. Well, I guess I don't know where to kick this off. Let me first. Someone tweeted at us hilariously. The Mailbag Monday podcast, famously recorded on Sundays. So it is Sunday, May 19th, but we don't deal with that bullshit human time. I'll tell you guys exactly what time it is. It's block height 844,175. The Bitcoin spot price is $66,000 or $66,610. Excuse me. We're at 1,501 sats per US cuckbuck, and we're trading at a market cap of just over $1.3 trillion for the asset class that is known as Bitcoin, the orange coin. So we're getting up there, approaching gold territory. Well, yeah, Brooke, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
We got to, I would assume a lot of the audience already knows who you are, but in case they don't, how would you give a quick overview outside of, I don't know, you're my stepmom, obviously, but you guys got me into Bitcoin.
Well, as Bill famously, when he created the Twitter account, and he came to me back in 2013, and he's like, I got a great idea. I made this Twitter account for you. You're going to be Bitcoin mom. Too many kids, not enough Bitcoin. And that's still my catchphrase on my Twitter account. We kind of figured out over time what in the world I was going to do with that account. And I think, 2013 to now, I think my job is done. I think I've done what I needed to do with
just
that account.
The tagline, you can see really how outdated our thinking was. Because what we're trying to do is, because Bitcoin was drug use, Silk Road, or evading capital controls or something shady. And we didn't really at the time even know, obviously didn't have any ETFs, but I don't even think we had any guidance from the IRS yet. We didn't know if it was ordinary income or whatnot.
No, it was.
So I was just trying to normalize it. Like I'm just a mom with too many kids, but not enough Bitcoin, right? Because moms control the purse strings. Moms are right. I just thought that was a good angle to come at, but I don't know now with Bitcoin, being such prominence, whether it's ETFs, nation state adoption. It's, as we said last week, it is an issue in a political campaign, right? In a presidential campaign.
Who'd have thought, man?
Yeah, I don't think we really need the Bitcoin mom to kind of.
I know, but it's funny because that you ask, because he created the Bitcoin mom account because he likes to be behind the scenes. I do too. Normally I'm sitting on the other side of this computer when you guys are recording this podcast, and I'm just like handing notes or texting Jack, like, dog, remember this, or hoping that Dylan will say something or whatever. But I didn't want to be on stage. And when he created the Twitter account, he was, for those reasons, he was like, we have to promote adoption. This is great. You can just be the face of the mom face. But it was 2 weeks before the first FinCEN. There was the hearings on Capitol Hill, and FinCEN was weighing in and talking about how they understood Bitcoin, and they were starting to take it seriously.
When was that? 2013?
November 2013 is when Silk Road had gone down in October 2013. Then that was when Dad ran home from the playground, and he's like, "Oh my God, I got to buy some Bitcoin," and left you guys all there. And he's like, "Go get the kids home. I have to go trade this." And then that started that Bitcoin pump that was crazy. And it's funny, this segues with a wonderful tweet thread that Pete Rizzo did this week that was lauding, Jack, your involvement and involvement with Bitcoin from such an early age and how instrumental you've been in Bitcoin adoption for the last 10, 11 years. And anyway, one of the tweets was a picture of how we took all of the kids. I don't know if everybody knows that you have 5 siblings, and that we took all 6 kids plus Tony and Sarah, our other kids that we've sort of adopted, and whoever, I can't remember, there were other people.
That was it.
Anyway, so what at the time back in the day, so you said, oh, there should be the segment called Babbling Brooke, and then you'll babble. I'm like, oh, I don't like to talk, and here I am like babbling already. Okay. Anyway, so if you look up Pete Rizzo's tweet thread, there's this picture of all of our kids holding their phones out, and they have the Gift, GYFT, gift card app. What you could do back in the day is that we would use Bitcoin to load up these gift cards. And then we sent all of the kids down to Michigan Avenue. We all took like a pre-Christmas shopping trip. Everybody had Secret Santas, and they could take these cards these gift cards on their phones and go shopping. And Jack would be like, and then Bill and I sat at, I think it was Bistro 110, and we just sat at this bar having a glass of wine, and would get text messages from the kids. Hey, my card's empty. Can you fill it back up? You would buy a little bit more Bitcoin. You would send it over to the card. All happened within like minutes. And we just thought we had beat the system. It was the coolest thing. Yeah. And that was like what we did, was we were spreading adoption by spreading payments. I know Dad talks about this all the time on the podcast, that the narrative has shifted more towards Bitcoin being digital gold and a store of value. But at the time it was more, we were trying to promote it as payment system until the IRS killed that.
Yeah. It's a gift is, what everyone knows is Bitrefill today. Not the same company, but the same service. You can buy and load up gift cards with Bitcoin. Gift was Vinny Lingham.
Yeah.
That was back when Vinny Lingham was like an actual Bitcoiner.
When he was one of us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. As it goes, though, people cycle through. It's okay. But yeah, we had to have the Bitcoin mom on. I mean, this show, I was telling Dylan yesterday, if people want to hear me rant about macroeconomics or something, I'll go on their podcast. But for our podcast, I think I just like hanging out with my family and my best friend. That's kind of how we've built. So that's what this podcast is we had to include you because you're always part of the conversations anyway. It felt kind of artificial and not very us to like not have you on, since you're part of all of the conversations anyway. But also now the world can see one of the most powerful families in all of banking right here on the screen. You're looking at them. We control all of banking. Every time my parents get involved or there's conspiracy threads about us, which by the way is so fucking insane, just knowing where we've been through. We're just like a North suburban outside Chicago family that just grew up like, I don't know, I played pickup sports like everybody else. And then now that there's conspiracy threads that my dad is the most powerful banker.
No, it's hilarious. Yeah, I think the tweet, I'm not even going to say who wrote the tweet because he's a BSB champion. I don't know what he was saying, but he goes, there are very few banking families more powerful than the Mallers family.
Has anyone in our family ever been a banker?
Do you know how many banks have canceled us?
Yeah,
we get banks canceling us all the time. We don't have any power.
Well, because the only businesses we've ever been in are Bitcoin and weed. Yeah, banks hate us.
Oh, speculation.
And speculation.
Banks didn't like that either, and I really had to rely on all of Senior's contacts really to get the Harris Bank loan.
Oh, shut up, you banker! Get the fuck out.
No, seriously,
that's something the most powerful banker in the world would say.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. No.
Wow, your guys' CIA handler needs a raise. This is a good narrative you guys are running with.
That's exactly what a powerful banking family would say. But anyway, exactly. Back when the pandemic hit, we're getting out of the cannabis business, by the way. Say that to all the banks that are going to cancel us. Banks don't like you being in cannabis. Okay. So they will cut you off. And back in the day, you can actually fill this in real quickly. When you were building First American Discount, you and your dad had a great relationship with the Harris Bank in Chicago and would trade employees and that kind of thing. And Harris thanked you and you thanked them. It allowed them to get, knowledgeable about the futures industry and that kind of stuff. And you had a 40-year relationship with that bank. And near the end, back a few years ago, 2020, when we need to scramble, everything shut down in March of 2020, and we wanted to make payroll, and we were scrambling for any kind of cash we could find to be able to make sure everybody stayed paid, even though the stores were closed. And I think I wrote a $9,000 check from our Harris account. We didn't really use the Harris account that much anymore, but we kept it just because we felt faithful to them. And I wrote a $9,000 check to the cannabis company to help with that. And Harris called and canceled us. That was it. We can't bank you anymore. I mean, it was unbelievable. You're connected to the cannabis industry. We can't bank you. I was like,
well,
okay.
I don't even own dollars anymore, so I barely even use banks.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
But that stuff always cracks me up. It's pretty crazy, and it's a battle. Like, I'm sure we'll never win. There'll always be people that think that we are. I don't actually understand where that comes from, because Senior was a chairman of the Chicago Board of Trade at one point, but I'm not sure. Or because I have to KYC my customers, I think too. This is like the fact that I'm forced to KYC my customers makes me a banker, I guess. Whatever. Anyway, yeah, we've been through the craziest, the last 11 years in Bitcoin. It's a long time at this point.
Back in the day, I think it was 2017, I made a scrapbook for Jack and Bill. I had kept screenshots of tweets or anything Jack was doing to promote the various projects he was working on. And I don't know, I just made this, just as a remembrance. And now I couldn't possibly keep up, especially with Jack's career and seeing, how that's gone. Pete Rizzo found things that I wish I had a scrapbook.
I don't know how he found some of that stuff.
The sketch you made for when you were coming up with the idea for Strike in a hotel in Paris on a piece of paper, right? That's cool.
Yeah. And shout out to Pete. That tweet thread was very nice. I really appreciate it. I think it wasn't enough credit probably to you guys. Like the notion that I did all this by myself, I've always had both my parents supporting me, and Dylan has been there pretty much the whole time as well. So, but it was a very nice thread, and I appreciated it. And I don't know how he got all of that stuff. I mean, he was showing like Zero House Edge videos. Are those even on YouTube? Where do you get those from?
So I'm pretty sure when we started the Chicago Bitcoin meetup in the first, Dylan, did you know this? That the first presenter was Jack on that meetup, which is now one of the biggest meetups in the world. It's called
I did not know that.
The Bob meetup, the Bitcoin and Open Blockchain meetup. And Jack presented, we were in Bucktown at a little nerdy cafe that I don't think it's there anymore. And Jack presented Zero House Edge. Do you want to tell everybody what Zero House Edge was? Because it was pretty fucking cool. You were working with the 21 Bitcoin computer that Balaji had come out with. And you you just figured out how to do smart contracts on Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the tweet thread was pretty accurate, to be honest. So you guys got me into Bitcoin when I dropped out of college like 11 years ago. And my dad got me into a coding boot camp. I dropped out of university. Dylan, I went to St. John's in New York. I dropped out. I never actually received a college credit, so I never finished an actual semester. So I dropped out immediately. Dylan was at U of I. So all of us grew up outside of Chicago. Everyone went to University of Illinois, Indiana University, Iowa, like stayed in the Midwest, Michigan, whatever. And I was like, well, fuck me. I guess I should go where all my friends are going. And my dad was kind of like, yeah, you didn't say this explicitly, but you were like, I don't think I'm want to spend another like 50 grand on a semester. You seem kind of fucking all over the place. And you bring me to boxing, and through boxing, got me into a coding boot camp. So fast forward, I was an engineer all of a sudden. So I could write code, which was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because it's very much like Dorsey. I've never considered myself an engineer, more of a hacker. You know, if you have ideas and you can hack them to becoming real, it's a very powerful concept. You can make things exist. And it's all the difference of being able to show something in practice versus tell someone an idea. So then I was a hacker and I could start hacking on Bitcoin. And yes, I built my journey in Bitcoin. I don't know if people know this. I applied to pretty much every single Bitcoin company and I got rejected by everyone. So thank God, because there would be no strike if Coinbase would have hired me. But they rejected me. Kraken rejected me. Pretty much everyone rejected me. And so I just kept trying stuff in my room of my parents' house at the time. And one of my ideas was if we could remove the house edge from gambling, if we could do peer-to-peer gambling. And I was using multi-sig smart contracts on Bitcoin for that. So we would create a 2 or 3 multi-sig. The 2 people gambling would send a transaction to the multi-sig, and then the 3rd signer was my server, and the server would check APIs like who won the chess game on chess.com, or did the Cubs beat the Giants on MLB.com. And so then that way it wasn't necessarily trustless. You're trusting my server, but it was trust minimized for sure. But the most important part is it removed all the overhead cost of running an intermediary like Bet Online or like a casino or something like that. And I launched it.
I mean, the other thing that was, because I really love that idea and I'm surprised it never worked or it never caught anywhere else. But the other good thing, not only is it peer-to-peer and it cuts out the friction and whatever, either the casino or the bookie or whoever's taking 10%, not only that, but it let the user set his line. Like, yeah. I think, what's the line on this game? Well, how many points is LeBron going to get in the playoffs? Is there a decent line? I don't know. I think he's not going to get 30 in the postseason. Whatever. I can just throw that out there, and somebody says, "Nah, I'm going to need 2 to 1 before I take that." Right? You can negotiate your own line. I'm really surprised that didn't catch on.
Well, I also had an interesting perspective on gambling because as I dropped out and as I was growing up, I would commute from I grew up in a suburb outside of Chicago, so I would commute by train into Chicago, and I would play chess in the parks of Chicago for cash money. I would gamble that way. And there's just always something different about putting money on the line. It makes everything real. And so I never like playing people in chess unless you're gambling, but not because I don't gamble on anything else, but it's like skin in the game. It made it real. And so I kind of appreciated that. So when I built the software, it was so that I could bring that experience to the internet. My least favorite part about online chess is like, there's nothing on the line. And so I wanted to be able to wager with people online instead of having to go into, I was like 15 years old playing with a bunch of fucking homeless drug addicts for cash. I was. And I was like, man, if I could bring this to the internet. The problem though is like, if you lose a game on the internet, you're just never going to pay the guy. But if you both sent Bitcoin into a smart contract and then some server was able to make sure that the guy couldn't run away with the money, then we could and I built that. And then of course you bring it. So the way the software worked is, you can set your own line and then someone can accept it, send the Bitcoin in. And then if there was a dispute, the server would be the last third signature and pay out the winner based on API results. And it was all very transparent, like what API checks I was going to check and everything like that. But through that, that is what really taught me how Bitcoin worked, because I was running Bitcoin Core and I was building multi-sig smart contracts. And then I realized that the Bitcoin blockchain, like Bitcoin fees, got cost prohibitive and we couldn't actually make it work because it was too expensive. And then that's when this was 2015, 2016, right? Like, look guys, the Lightning Network white paper had never even been written.
Right.
And so that was when I started to research, like, how are we going to scale Bitcoin? Because I can't run this gambling software on chain. And that's what led me into getting into the Lightning Network, which was around the time of the block size wars. And then that's when I was like very deeply invested as an engineer of we can't double the block size. That's actually not going to solve anything. But it was very obvious to me because I had been working on Bitcoin. I'd gotten rejected from every job I'd ever applied for. So I was just sitting in my room working on these things all day. And that's how I became part of the block size wars and early to Lightning, because it was very obvious to me immediately. It was like, this is how we're going to have to scale Bitcoin. It was very obvious. But yeah,
it's so interesting, that timing too, because that was 2017. I mean, the time is perfect for all of that. The way it, I was just thinking about this morning when you were starting to work on Zap, because you were the first. Zap was the first app on the Lightning Network.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the Bitcoin conference in Oslo, Norway, and I was at lunch with Andreas Antonopoulos, and you were sending me something about what you were building on Zap. And I remember he like grabbed the phone and then he started texting you his ideas. Oh, Jack, you should make these addresses human readable. Or I can't remember all the things. It was, looking back on that, it was like before the Lightning Network actually was working. And I think a lot of people also don't know that year that you were the first to test SegWit on Litecoin with Charlie Lee, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell that? That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, actually, this is going to be really funny because all the time in my Twitter replies, there's Litecoiners that are, like Jack actually loves Litecoin and Strike's actually going to add Litecoin to Strike because he's made Lightning payments with Litecoin. The first mainnet Lightning Network payment ever was Jack and Charlie Lee on Litecoin. And that's all true. The reason, though, is because Litecoin was like our test net. It was a test. Litecoin had SegWit adopted on it in mainnet so that we can actually fucking try the thing. So for everyone that isn't aware, SegWit is what allowed us to get Lightning. It fixed transaction malleability. It was a bug. It wasn't really a bug, but it depends how you define the word bug. But here nor there, we needed this update called SegWit to get the Lightning Network. And that was where a lot of controversy and soft forks and hard forks and that the whole block size wars. And so Bitcoin was having a tough time activating SegWit because of the lack of consensus, but Litecoin had SegWit. And so we were like, oh, we can test the actual software and see how it works with real money on this shit coin. And so I did. That is true. I made one of the first. I actually don't know, and people get like super wound up about who is the actual first. I have no idea, nor do I give a shit. But I was probably one of the earliest of real Lightning Network payments, but it had to be on Litecoin because Bitcoin didn't have SegWit yet. So that's the truth. I think Litecoin's a shit coin. Strike is never adding Litecoin, just to be abundantly clear to all of the Litecoin folks. I'm sorry. But it is true that I made a Litecoin Lightning Network transaction with Charlie Lee because we were trying to test out SegWit and the Lightning Network.
I think it's an important place to take stock on the most powerful family in banking. Currently on the roster, we have Bitcoin, cannabis, and gambling.
Right.
I mean,
there you go.
Oh my gosh.
A quick note on Andreas Antonopoulos, though. This is a part of Pete Rizzo's thread that wasn't in there, and maybe on purpose because I appreciate it. It was a very dark time for me. But, well, first, Andreas, so Brooke started the first Bitcoin meetup in Chicago ever. So the first meetup was in 2014 in our living room.
Well,
right?
that was before the Bob meetup started in January 2016.
So there's a meetup in my living room with Andreas Antonopoulos. And then when we formally started it, I was the first presenter, and there were 6 people in the crowd, maybe. One of them was Andreas Antonopoulos. 2 others were my buddies from high school. Shout out Slice, shout out Hawk. So there were really like 3 people that I didn't know. But seriously, I was presenting to like 6 people. 2 were my friends that I brought from home, and 1 was Andreas Antonopoulos. Then as I would build these things in my career, Andreas was always very supportive. and he would always give me advice or always tweet it out and help me get a little bit of users and some notoriety. And then when I had my accident and I was in the hospital with my head injury, there's a very hilarious story that I've told publicly, but Andreas came to the hospital and visited me. And that was right after the block size. So that was in early 2018. And so we did get SegWit. Lightning was a thing. And he came in and we were talking about the Lightning Network and the doctors. So I had a head injury, and the doctors thought I was getting worse. I was digressing in my progress because we were talking about neutrino filters and block weight, and they thought I wasn't making good English. And Andreas was there and told the doctors, like, no, he's actually making phenomenal sense. He's talking about distributed link-to-link protocols that are scaling Bitcoin in layers. And that was around the time when the doctors were like, oh, maybe his brain is going to be okay. And all my scans were great, and I like miraculously recovered. But Andreas was there for that too. So this is an Andreas Antonopoulos shout out for if we're going to go through my career. My parents, obviously, Dylan, obviously, but Andreas has got to be up there too. Andreas was a very critical part of the early parts of my career. And I know the Bitcoin community misses him dearly in his lesser involvement nowadays, which I know is for personal reasons, and he enjoys the lifestyle that he has. But you know, that guy not only was really important to Bitcoin, but was really important to me, and I really appreciate him.
On that note, I think, we always tell the story. Bill got into Bitcoin, and then he bought his first 5 lot in August of that year of 2013, and he couldn't wait. My birthday's in November, but he couldn't wait, and he always every year would give me some creative gift. One year was drawing lessons. One year, and he gave me some Bitcoin, and then he just proceeded to tell me all about Bitcoin, and it was overwhelming. And so I sort of lived for a few months of living into what Bitcoin was, and it was going up in price, and then Silk Road, and then Bitcoin Mom was created, and then we got all the kids involved. And but it was when I saw an Andreas video that I went, okay, now I'm orange pilled. Now I get it. Yeah. I was number go up. This is interesting. Great investment. When are we going to sell, kind of thing. And then I saw Andreas was speaking at this conference called Disrupt in Greece, and it's a beautiful speech. It's so succinct. I just Google Disrupt and Antonopoulos, and you'll find it. And then I was like, oh my God, I really get it. And then he had tweeted out a month later. I was so starstruck by this guy. It's not like we knew him or anything. And he had tweeted out in January of 2014, hey, I'm going to Chicago. Anybody, are there any Bitcoin meetups for me to go to? And I searched, and there weren't any. And so that's why we decided I'm like, why don't we have a Bitcoin meetup in our, something you would never do today. You would never invite a bunch of strangers to your house to wander around as much as they want, because people did. They're like, oh, can I get a tour of your house? I'm like, okay. And it was that cold February night. It was like 20 below zero. He shows up and then I didn't know if he was going to come. He had said, I said on Twitter, hey, will you follow me so I can DM you? So he did. And I'm like, Andreas just followed me, but it's because I asked. And so then I was like, would you like to come? We'll hold a meetup at our house. He didn't know us. He didn't know whether he could trust us. That's kind of scary to go to someone's house. And he's, being an information security guy, he's always thinking of every threat scenario. So, but he did show up, and it was the greatest feel-good meetup that night because so many people came despite the weather. And one guy brought, I don't remember what it was. A book they wanted him to sign, and I don't think he had started mastering Bitcoin yet. But anyway, he didn't realize at the time that he was so famous. And I only knew that later, but I'll go back up. So he ended up staying in our living room. No one wanted to leave on that cold night. Not because it was cold, because everybody was transfixed at everything he had to say. And Bill loves to tell how he kept trying to get, let him off the hook. And, hey, anybody else want to talk about this or whatever? And
even more forcefully, I go, this is not a paid speaking engagement.
Right, we just
this is a meetup. So you tell, how is it that you became interested in Bitcoin? And the guy would go, Andreas, now what do you think about this, that, and the other? And then Andreas would just go off.
And I remember
he's like, he cannot stop. And then one time I even got up, stretched my legs, walk around, and somebody got up with me and were like, I'm just gonna let him go. I can't.
Yeah.
I don't think he's leaving. All right, because he was so passionate. And like you said, succinct. And he like finishes sentences with an piece. He's a very good speaker, but even in a small informal setting, as well as in front of a large crowd. Now that was a fun night.
It really was. And questions like, we still remember some of the questions people were asking, like, how come I can't see Coinbase, the company Coinbase transactions on the blockchain? And he was explaining, well, that's off chain. That's their internal database.
Not only explaining, he said that he was consulted, that he used to consult when Coinbase was being put together, and that he had advised to not do it that way, but they chose not to. But no, he was very intimate with that decision, and that has still bothered people, right?
Oh, sure.
I mean,
but what's funny is so even 11 years ago, the questions people were asking, which I was one of them at one point, are still the same questions people ask today. Crazy. Really? That's the craziest part, is like, yeah, I mean, it's just how early we are. I mean, you log onto the internet today and there's some economist that is like, well, the fact that you could divide the Bitcoins makes them inflationary. But seriously, like 11 years ago, I would come home from coding school and I would ask these questions, and that was it. But we're still that early in the adoption of this thing where, I mean, thank God you guys got me into it 11 years earlier than everybody else. But like, it's just, I don't know. I still like, you could have recorded that meetup and posted it on the internet and people would have learned today. And it was, basic 101. Like, why is the supply cap fixed? Why is that a good thing? Like, what's the difference between privacy and pseudonymity? Like, all of that, like, type of stuff was like very basic, and you still see it today. There are like Harvard professors that are asking the same questions that I was asking 11 years ago.
No doubt. It's really interesting. I wish we had recorded that whole thing. We just didn't think that it was going to be a significant event. There was a guy there at the meetup who had bought his first Bitcoin on Mt. Gox. Remember that? We were trying to figure out, like, because Coinbase was relatively new at that time. So to get Bitcoin was hard. Still in early 2014, you either went to Coinbase or you went to local Bitcoins, and local Bitcoins was already under fire because somebody had been indicted for selling more than $20,000 worth of Bitcoin in a park, where, and the guy had sold it to was a Fed. And so even that was really sketchy. And so it's just the really, really early times.
It's still hard. I mean, that's one of the reasons I founded Strike. Today, it's still hard.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a lot easier. But it's still hard. Well, okay. I don't know. We'll have to hear from the audience. If you guys like a lot of the Bitcoin history stuff and our experience, let us know. I love talking about this stuff, but I want to make sure that the audience does as well. I will take the topic, though, real quick, of how difficult it is to buy Bitcoin and parlay it into the CME is launching a spot Bitcoin exchange. I want just to get my dad's take on it really quick, because I was shocked by this news only because they're not a spot exchange. They're a derivatives exchange. They're a futures exchange. I, though, am bullish by the news because I still to this day think that there isn't high quality exchange products for spot Bitcoin. When someone's like, why would the CME do that? My opinion is, what? You want the best traders in the world to use Coinbase? Like, who's the spot Bitcoin exchange in the world? You want Ken Griffin to sign up for Coinbase? Is that what you're asking Citadel to do? So I assume that CME has gotten demand from customers like IMC, like Citadel, like DRW, we want high quality execution spot exchange, and these fucking guys out in San Francisco can't stay online. I assume that. So that to me is, it's still hard to get Bitcoin. Now it's a lot easier, but I don't think that the top high frequency traders in the world that probably want spot Bitcoin, physical Bitcoin exposure have a good exchange. It's Coinbase. So that's a Y Combinator startup.
No, they go over the counter.
Yeah,
They go to
Cumberland,
Cumberland,
market.
Nyack. Yeah.
No, you know my opinion on that. I just don't. We don't have 5,000 bushels of wheat at LaSalle and Jackson either, but we have a derivatives product that you use, right, to price that. I've never understood why we need to warehouse the underlying, but like I said, right, it's more, it gives you, more of a security problem, and it's just like more things that we don't do. Why do you want to turn the CME, right, into a data storage facility, right, instead of an order matching, right? And a liquidity provider is what we do. But like I said, every time anyone has ever asked anyone for CME, they always about, their plans for these products, they always say customer demand. Customers are asking for it. Why are we trading Ether? Customers ask for it. I don't think any CME membership that I know of really endorses Ether trading, but we are responding to customer demand. So I'm assuming that's why people want access to spot. Like I said, you're going to turn, right, a liquidity providing, futures exchange into a data storage company. I don't know.
A couple things I was thinking to fill in. I don't think your listeners understand. Well, I think a lot of Bitcoiners don't understand the significance of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and maybe you want to talk about like how old it is, like 150 years old.
Yeah.
It is an amazing organization, and when he keeps saying like, he's a member of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange because he bought his membership back in the day because he needed to clear when he had his company. Correct. Right. Yeah. So. I don't know if people realize that he's not representing the CME. Sometimes I feel like people think that. No, you're a member.
No, not at all. Yeah.
But what's interesting about the CME?
I'm retired, and not only am I not, speaking on behalf of the exchange, but I haven't been there. I haven't been on a trading floor in years. I've been retired. I'm kind of, if I want to stay in touch, like I say, I still have contacts there. Obviously, my brother and sister are both still in the business, but I haven't even kept touch with them on these things, right? I'm just watching the screen, but why we want to do spot, I assume is in response to customer demand, and yeah, way to go CME for responding to the customers. I just hope, I hope like everybody that's watched this industry over time, whether with Eastern exchanges and Mt. Gox exchanges, European exchanges, it's a battle to keep it secure, and I really wish us the best.
Scary.
It is. Cash
well, I think
so easy. You can't hack a cash settled product.
Oh man, the Bitcoiners hate cash settlement.
I know, but like I said, it's customer demand. We are a membership organization, and hopefully, I assume we're just responding to.
Yeah, I am curious. I think it's going to be interesting because the building an exchange is the full stack. You got to custody the physical. You also, I assume they're going to offer BTC USD 24/7, 365, which is new for them. But I do think that people are pissed. Listen, Strike, we are available online, reliable, only focus on Bitcoin, and customers love that from us when Coinbase goes down and stuff. But we aren't I don't think we're in exchange in the sense of, you can't place, like Ken Griffin isn't trading on Strike. Strike is for Bitcoiners that want to buy, use, withdraw, store. It's for the Bitcoiner, not for, the high frequency trading hedge fund. And so I think those guys are pissed. Like, can you imagine Ken Griffin getting an alert to his phone, like your exchange is down again, Coinbase? I assume that people are a little fed up. And we've actually seen this throughout the industry. Don Wilson, so DRW, Don's tried to start an exchange twice now. So these guys have always been a little bit frustrated. It's such a new, interesting thing that, what do you mean Don has to start an exchange? Don has never had to start an exchange. There's always been exchanges ready to trade, and Don just had to put on the trades. But the fact that it's a brand new asset class that's so innovative and different, these guys have had a really tough time finding a reliable market for themselves. And maybe they just went to the CME, is my best guess, and said, hey, these guys in San Francisco can't keep a server on if their life depended on it. And this asset class is going to run away from all of us. How about you guys just pick up the spot market? Because CME, just to be clear, is probably like one of, if not the best exchange in the world as far as volume traded.
Oh, yeah.
So that's as professional as it gets. And they probably are like, fine, yeah, absolutely. They've always been supporter of the asset class. So anyway, interesting development. It's very bullish for me though, because again, I don't think CME makes these decisions unless customers are demanding it. So that's a pretty cool indicator. And this is not ETF Bitcoin. This is spot physical. These guys are buying UTXOs. That's pretty fucking cool. Whatever customers of theirs want real spot physical Bitcoin instead of Larry Fink's financial product, that's pretty cool. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Okay. What time is it, Dill? Do we want to do dollar bill and then some Q&A? I guess we got sidetracked with some of our memories of being in Bitcoin. I forgot to do the dollar bill segment.
I can do
Yeah,
dollar bill in 90 seconds. I mean, the market's doing it for me. I think when I got to look at my notes from last week, I had, I'll back up for the basic premise. You got, whether it's the stock market, precious metals, or real estate index, all are showing double-digit gains year over year. I mean, the Dow's was up. These are notes from last week, 18%, gold up 17. Both have actually improved in the last week. Gold added looks like gold ended last week at 2,370. We're now over 24. Gold added about $50. The Dow is first time ever over 40,000. Like I said, people tend to make speculation more difficult than it needs to be. Trends, markets, the factors that support asset market trending, I've always thought are stronger in currency markets. So yeah, I'm trading from the long side. The biggest challenge, right, is just sitting on your hands. I do. And that's a hard thing to do, right? Because this is my market. Everybody's talking Bitcoin. It's all over the news. I've been studying this market for years. I should be actively, in there. And so I found a pep talk quote for you for patience. To be patient and react only when the market gives the signal is to speculate. Don't take action with a trade until the market itself confirms your opinion. Being a little late in a trade is insurance that your opinion is correct. In other words, don't be impatient. That's Jesse Livermore 100 years ago. Yeah, I mean, it's a hard thing to do. Guys like, I should be doing something. This is my market. It is my time, right? But I think I'm sitting on my hands. I have not logged into my account, and I was having a good year. I think I'm on the verge of having a strong year now if this keeps going.
Doing nothing. I cannot wait for the dollar bill segment where he actually says,
I logged in.
And here's what I did.
Well, markets like round numbers and new highs are like magnets, limits are like magnets. So yeah, what I'd sell some 70s, sure, and hope that it chops around and that's a range. But you better be ready to get them back at 75 because I don't know this market. Like I say, those are three different asset classes, and you want to throw in the fact that it's an election year. You want to throw in the fact that the last time the Fed tried to tighten monetary conditions, right? They tripped a couple of banks. I don't know. I think I think this is one of those sit on your hands markets.
Yeah,
I can't wait for that moment either, Cookie. I'll be copy trading like a motherfucker.
I remember, or this reminds me of when people are like, Bitcoiners can't just sit on the Bitcoin. They have to do something. It's like, what do you mean? Sitting on Bitcoin is doing something. If money is my time and energy in an abstracted form, that's me storing it. That's a conscious decision I'm making to put it into Bitcoin as opposed to putting it into the dollar or putting it into commercial real estate or putting it into a stock. That is doing something, jackass. Don't tell me what to do with my time and energy. I don't know. I've always been confused by that. It's like, what do you mean I have to do what? I'm perfectly fine just sitting here and storing my time and energy in this thing. Another comment I had, we talk a lot about
before you leave on, you're perfectly fine not doing anything with it. That's one of the fun things about Bitcoin is that with the days destroyed data, you can see that does seem to be more and more of a trend, right? More and more of the turnover in Bitcoin is recent, right? I mean, aren't like what days destroyed, if you want to,
right?
But I think what you and I are doing, just sit on your hands and try not to screw this up. Let the market do its thing. I think it's showing up in the data too.
I mean, there have been some old wallets that have moved recently in the last few months. Things from 2010, and I don't know if people understand what days destroyed that metric is. So people don't talk about it very much, but it's basically when old coins move or coins move, then the metric's called, it destroys a certain number of Bitcoin days. It's in terms of how long they had been held. It's
how long they've been extant, right?
Extant and held. And then once coins from 2010 or something are killing more Bitcoin days,
right.
Are destroying more Bitcoin days than coins that were bought in 2020 or something. But we don't really, it's kind of a weird metric. But go on, Jack, you were going to say something.
No, I really love the time and energy idea of that's what money is. And so we're talking about my career in the last 11 years of my life. Like my time and energy is stored in this Bitcoin thing. And I think that's just such a powerful idea. Like all of that shit that I've been through and the injury and all of the applications I tried to build that didn't work and stuff. I don't want to fuck with that time and energy. I mean, that's very valuable time I spent and energy I contributed to create those things and go through all that stuff. And I feel very comfortable and safe keeping it in Bitcoin. I wouldn't want that part of my life to be stored in the dollar, right? Or to be stored in anything else. I think it's just a very, I don't know. I was talking about it with some buddies last night, not necessarily Bitcoiners. And I was trying to explain to them, the idea that you can contribute time and energy into this world and now store it in a money like Bitcoin and pass it on to your kids. That's like the closest thing we'll ever get to being able to live forever. Is like I, as a human, can't live forever, but my time and energy now can, because no one can debase my life, right? Like I live my life and I exchange my life for Bitcoin personally, and I'm going to be able to hand that to my kids. And my kids won't get me forever, but they can get the time and energy that I spent here forever, because no one can debase it in Bitcoin, right? Which is the first time that's ever been possible. Think about it. How else would you be able to capture the time and energy you've spent in your life in an instrument that could last thousands of years, where your kids would be able to accept the life that you spent on this universe, right? Like, I mean, real estate, kind of close, but not really. Gold, no, didn't work. It's the only thing that you can't make any more of. So I don't know. I that's how I think about it. I work as hard as I can to be helpful and useful. And then my life goes into Bitcoin, and it just sits there. So I don't know. I was finding it bizarre with people like, it can't just sit there. It's like, why not? It's my life. It's like the representation of my life's work. Anyway, The other thing I talk a lot about Bitcoin being the best expression of monetary debasement, of this idea that they have to debase the currency, and that's best expressed in Bitcoin. It's kind of the opposite of the debasement. It's the leak in the boat. China, I don't know. I don't follow macroeconomics that much, but as a Bitcoiner, I do, especially because I'm fascinated by the QE that has to come. And they started printing a lot for the commercial real estate is supposedly busted in China. And on Friday, they came out and said, we're starting some QE for commercial real estate. And that's when Bitcoin went from 62 to 67, like immediately. And that to me is all the more confirmation, again, that Bitcoin is monetary debasement best expressed. And even if China on a Friday afternoon, their time, kind of hints at, well, commercial real estate's probably going to need our help, and Bitcoin's up immediately 6%. I think the market's all on the same page that Bitcoin is just going to take the opposite side of the debasement story, which is the most bullish thing of all time, because it's taking the opposite side of global debt to GDP of 350%, right? It's taking the opposite side of the US government, what is it, $1 trillion every 45 days or something like that. So you get to take the opposite side of that. So I don't know if anyone caught that, but it looks like Bitcoin's recent 5-6% run up was a reaction to the Public Bank of China, which again, I don't sit and refresh the screen of the Public Bank of China, but I am always curious, if we're going to continue to see validation of this idea. And it looks like we are, which I'm out in the public saying 250 to $1 million this cycle. I just don't think it's that crazy. Bitcoin looks really, really good right now. So we'll see.
I like it.
I like it. Dylan, you like it?
Yeah, sounds good to me. Sounds spot on.
Okay. What are we doing, Dill? Q&A?
Yeah, let's get into it. I actually think this is a good way to segue into this question from Steve-O at Steve-O 21 million. Thanks for the question. At what market cap in today's dollars do you think Bitcoin starts to destabilize the US bond market? What's more likely for bonds? A gradual grind down, a sudden collapse, or a mixture of both?
Oh, I mean, we print our own money. I can't not imagine a disruptive, collapsing treasury market. I mean, as you saw what happened, with a couple of minor hikes, and you already got some insolvencies. If the treasury market, loses support, I mean, I just can't imagine that. That's how everybody keeps score globally, right? That is the global reserve asset right now. I cannot envision a scenario where that's no good. I don't know.
Yeah, it won't collapse. It might put threat to collapsing, and then they'll have to print money, like my dad said. I also do. This kind of reminds me. I do think that my opinion on like de-dollarization, quote unquote, is nothing ever collapses overnight, right? Like the Roman Empire also didn't fall overnight. Maybe in hindsight, or if you go through history class, it's expressed that way. But what is overnight? How much time is overnight? Like de-dollarization probably started in the 2008, 2009, probably, right? When everyone realized, well, they don't really care about protecting the value of the thing that they're forcing us to store the world's wealth in, right? They clearly don't. And so that's probably when de-dollarization started, and it happens at the margins, like everything else. Like people are now starting to trade oil, not with the dollar. And it's slowly, but it's happening, right? So de-dollarization's probably already started, and I don't think any of these things are going to collapse overnight. They're going to have to debase their way out, and it's going to be slow. And the weird part is what's going to happen next. Are we really going to go on a Bitcoin standard? Oh, central banks own a lot of gold. Are they going to debase their currency in favor of gold? And that's the part that's up for speculation. But I think the de-dollarization is already happening. It probably started after the last financial crisis when everyone was like, I can't trust these people. And it happens time and time again. Like when we seized Russia's stuff. I mean, I still don't know. Listen, may offend people. Like I said, I'm not, no political bias any which way from me. I've never voted still to this day. But I don't know, has Putin been convicted of whatever US media was claiming him out to be? Because I mean, we just took it. We were like, oh wow, nice US treasuries you have there. We'll take those. Was he ever convicted for the awful? My point is, like, time and time again, we break trust in what we're supposed to be as the world reserve currency. So de-dollarization is probably already, I mean, we just took all that country's money, right? We just took all their shit. I mean, a huge invalidation of property rights. So, yeah. I mean, it's no opinion on whether Putin's a good or bad guy, but it's an opinion on whether you can trust that the financial system of America to store your time and energy, your money. I think that it's already happening at the margins. People are already, it's already winding down. So I don't know. I don't think there'll ever be a collapse. They'll just keep debasing.
I agree.
Just one question?
Yep.
Okay. Well, yeah, Cookie, thanks for joining. You guys let us know if you like a lot of the history. I mean, I love talking about that stuff, but Cookie, I think you got to join just because you're always part of the conversations anyway. I don't know why you wouldn't. This podcast for me, at least, is the Mailbag Mondays for me is just casual shooting the shit with Bitcoiners. We don't have any ads. If you want to support us, you can ask questions in the comments, let us know what we could be doing better, and download Strike. But this is our weekly, these are the FaceTimes we have anyway. So let us know what you guys thought about our family history, I guess. The most powerful banking family in the world.
Mailbag Mondays are recorded on Sundays. Flammable means the exact same thing as inflammable.
Mm-hmm.
We work a lot of word puzzles. There are no canaries on the Canary Islands. So it all makes sense.
Yeah, well, let us know what you guys think. Let us know what you guys want us to talk about next week. And we will see you on the internet. I don't know. You guys have any sign-offs?
Get long, get paid.
Get long, get paid.
Yeah.
Who's making that t-shirt?
Yeah. Patch me through the Strike merchandising department. I assume that I'm talking to the president and vice president. If I understand, I know you guys have like 180 people working for you, but I assume you guys are in charge of t-shirt slogans.
I think Dylan does.
I think Dylan does the cool.
It is Dylan.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're talking to the right guy.
Yeah. We like it.
I like it long, get paid.
GLGP.
Cool. All right. See you guys.
Thanks guys.